Hello, Hockey World. Welcome to the show. And now to Russ with something to say.
Let's talk about the Super Bowl ratings. We always like to talk about the Super Bowl ratings. They're down. They're down 15%. You can't use the kneeling excuse. You can't use the anything excuse. They did draw like 94 million people, but that also means that 230 million people did something else. And this has to be worrisome to the NFL because, you know, if you took away the boxes and you took away the score, the gambling, and you took away the party atmosphere, what would the Super Bowl be? I'll leave that for you to decide. But right now, they're worried because they're not going to be able to get the ad rates that they used to get. And remember, I want to say 4 big companies didn't have those mega ads this year. I have a feeling now Super Bowl ads are going to start declining in value.
Well, do you think that this is a symptom of the fact that people didn't get together in large parties?
But they should be watching more, though. You know what I mean? Like,
I think there'd be more TVs on, but I do think that there are people who, that you go to Super Bowl parties who, if there's no Super Bowl party, aren't going to watch the Super Bowl. Like, I think that I think
some people for that. I
think that's a large group of people, honestly, because like we had people over here, you know, like the one friend of ours who, you know, my daughter has been quarantined with because she's measly rooming with her in college. She's like, I've never watched Super Bowl before, you know, ever. It's just like, it's just if you don't, you know.
Sure. I mean, granted, I get that. And let's draw in the other thing. Look, I mean, the game is always a factor, so maybe people left at halftime, but still, it wasn't great even the whole game. Let's also bring in the fact of the halftime show, which is supposed to be the antidote for them for skewing the audience, and it didn't work. The weekend fell flat.
Yeah. Right? And also, I mean, you could make the argument that having the same quarterback who, other than the New England fan base and now the Tampa fan base, is hated because he's won 7 Super Bowls and whatever.
People love to hate watch.
I think Brady is Brady's good for ratings. I think
he's good for ratings.
Like he's good for like my wife was like, oh really, Brady's in it, I'll watch it, like that kind of thing. I think that more people who are like
worried about that. I'm just.
I'm very. I've caught my wife with Tom Brady several times, Russ. I completely believe that that's a problem, but I'm not going to get into that now. This is not.
Because you've been caught with Giselle. We know.
It's not the time or place.
We also want to pay our respects to Marty Schottenheimer. He passed away, and he was a longtime football coach. Yes, there was always a lot of criticism because he was really known to be a nice guy, and he definitely seemed like a legit nice guy. Won a couple hundred games. A lot of different teams, Browns fans, a lot of different teams. And so, you know, we just pay our respects. For us,
Yeah. All right, let's get started because we got
a lot of stuff in the NHL, man.
Gotta get today, I'm in the middle of trying to find out there's a question that came up here from Timothy Park. Who else is on the COVID list for the Flyers? I'll get to that in a second. Okay. All right, here we go. It is the 9th, right? Yep, sure.
If you say so.
It was the day after yesterday, which was the 8th, so I'm going to go with the 9th. All right. Hello, Hockey World. It is Tuesday, February 9th, 2021.
I'm Michael Agello, and I know what I'm going to get Eck for Christmas.
I'm Russ Cohen from Sportsology. It won't matter.
Others have tried, Mike. Believe me, others have tried. You can't get any better than my phone, which is sitting right here, which has the date on it right in front of me, right? I mean, honestly, how could that be better? And I'm Eklund. You're watching HockeyBuzzcast on HockeyBuzz.com. This is the podcast that comes to you Monday through Friday. So I got a big fight with some totally unhockey related today, but I'm like I'm in a really weird mood. So I'm trying to keep myself like from losing my mind. And we got some fun topics to talk about. So it could get interesting. Today's show could get interesting.
Let me talk about the one bad topic first, and then we'll get into the fun because we just heard that Bell Media just cut stations in Vancouver and Hamilton, the TSN stations, and I did a lot of work with TSN 1040 in Vancouver. We used to have Hockey Prospect Radio on there. I used to go on there 5-6 times a year, every draft year. I had given live updates for them for different shows for the Stanley Cup when it was in Philly and a few other markets. I knew people who worked there.
Yeah, I've been on them too.
This is brutal. The only thing I'm going to say is companies can do whatever they want, but if you actually treat your workers right, then you know what? The stockholders will still make money. When you put stockholders first, then you get this, and this is terrible.
Well,
go ahead.
It's just, I mean, I don't know how these multi-billion-dollar corporate entities think. I mean, they obviously don't care about like how to cover a particular thing like sports, because for you to cover sports and cover sports well, you have to have people who write for your sites, who are on the radio and who are on television and do a good job. And I don't know how these companies expect their covers to be top notch when they don't pay anybody and they don't employ anybody. It's sort of like we heard this a couple weeks ago, where Mid-Atlantic Sports Network, Masson. That covers now they're owned by the Baltimore Orioles. They also cover the Washington Nationals. They basically fired everybody, and their pregame show for baseball is not existing anymore. Now there's no pregame. You go right to the game, and then afterward, the broadcast crew will, for 15 minutes after the game, talk about the game, and then they have no postgame. That's great coverage, guys. You're really going to get a lot of eyeballs watching your product when you're basically providing no coverage. It sucks. It really does suck.
We're in a weird time, and to play both devil's advocate a little bit here, and also the other side of it, because honestly, I'm in both positions. Like, I employ hockey writers, and I'm a hockey writer myself, so I'm in this position. So I know the challenges that everybody faces now. I'm not like at their level, where I'm not like paying for guys to travel around with teams and stuff like that or anything like that. Like I pay our writers, as Michael attests, humbly. And and we do our best to keep going. Like, we do our best to keep alive. And some of my writers end up leaving and going to the sports nets of the world because there's more money to be made there. And some of them are probably could get laid off in this next round or what have you. It's a tough world. We live in a very weird world with this whole thing. And one of the reasons who have also had opportunities to go to Sportsnet and TSN over the years, haven't done it, is because I decided to have to control my own fate more, to be like, I'd rather make less money, but know that I'm controlling myself, and know that I'm in control of what's happening. Know that I'm going to make the decision on whether I go to the Stanley Cup Finals or not. I'm going to make that decision based on what I can do financially and what that kind of thing. So I know that the paradigm has shifted drastically for sports writers. I've talked to Kevin about this. He's a great one to talk about this because he's obviously. Right. He's right there. But he'll tell you, first of all, we used to have discussions. Like, I got to be able to do this. I got to be able to stay at this kind of hotel. I got to be able to do that. And he says he realized over time that had to change. There had to be a shift in how that was done. And writers and people who are used to a certain way of living, that makes sense that you don't want to do that anymore. That you want to continue what you're doing, but you can't based on the way money is made in this industry. So it's really tricky. And that's why I always look at when we look at the Athletic and how it's surviving now, but still, it hasn't had to like pay the piper yet on what they've paid people out versus what they're making. They're still losing money. Losing
their business model. I mean, I'm not saying this with any kind of particular glee, because there are people that I respect and know who work for the Athletic, but their business model is flawed and eventually will collapse, because you cannot be able, like, after a year or so, or after 2 years, I'll be giving away subscriptions that you were selling for $30 a year for $10 a year and make money. They're surviving on venture capital from Silicon Valley, and
pay writers like $100,000 a year, which they're doing in some cases, and that to me is some of them aren't making that, but some of them are, and
it's hard, and it's going to be hard.
Yeah, and some of those people deserve that money because they used to make that kind of money when they were at their newspapers, and I mean, they're great writers, but the reality is, I know from running this business myself, like what you can make in internet advertising. And even if you're 10 times the size of HockeyBuzz, I know what you can make in internet advertising. And even then, I know you can't pay that many people that much money to be able to and survive. You just can't, and we've never fired anybody at HockeyBuzz. We take a huge amount of pride in that. I'm not saying that we'll never have to, but because, business is business. But to this point, we've never done it. And that's, we've taken less. I've taken way less money. We've made it work, but everybody has taken less money at one point or another in our company to make it work, and everybody understands that. It's a tough one. It's a tough spot.
They've done that at the Atlantic too, and make it but it's just wrong.
Russ, your internet connection. Russ, your internet connection is really bad right now for some reason. just log out, log in if you could for us. Just let's give it another shot because he's going in and out on us, right? You get that too.
Yeah, he's frozen right now.
Yeah. So Mike, I mean, Mike, I've talked about this at length, of course, but it's like this is a tough spot to be in, and I get they don't care. It's easy to sit there and say they don't care about this or they don't care about things being covered that way or not, but there is a reality to this.
Yeah, Johnny in the chat. I pay $59 a year for The Athletic. I subscribed years ago. I paid like 30 something, and it renews. They're selling subscriptions for $12 a year for $1 a month now. And people like me who subscribe beforehand and are paying $30 a year, they're rightfully pissed off because they're saying, okay, I'd like to get my subscription for $12 a year, but they can't get that because they're already locked in.
They're for free
Yeah, you can get it for, some people get it for free for a year. I don't know.
through T-Mobile. I got it for free.
Yeah, you might go. Yeah, with T-Mobile, you can get I got a free Netflix for a year. I mean, it's a tough spot to be in. I don't know what the answer is. For them, they're trying to figure it out as they go along. They are survived on venture capital. They are eventually those guys will want their money or they'll get out of it. That's how the venture capitalists work. As much as the venture capitalists who started that love sports and everything like that, which is why it started, which is great. And for them, the money they put into The Athletic is far less than the money they put into many other ventures. So even though they're putting, a lot of money in what we feel like is a lot of money, it's not.
And what they're betting on, Eck, and this was Russ. Do you remember the National? Remember yeah, okay. What they're betting on, and the National tried to do this 20, 25 years ago, they're trying to corner the market, and they're hoping that newspapers die, so everybody has
right.
But the problem is newspapers, even though they're firing people or laying people off or not rehiring people who are retiring or hiring people after people retire, they're not dying. So it's like, at least not yet. So
they're not going to die. They're not going to die because there's going to be people who are going to be. There's always people out of college willing to take a lot less money to write for them. And that's always going to happen. And you're going to find that newspapers are in a lot of ways have become like the positions. Yeah, like the proving ground for a lot of people. Like before they go to like that places like The Athletic and TSN and HockeyBuzz and things like that. Like you see, like newspapers are really they're starting that. It's a different world. So I don't know.
Well, okay, they should. Go ahead. You're still.
Yeah, Rush, you need to restart your modem or something. Sorry, we never have this issue with you, but something's really funky in your place. Look. That you froze in a really angry-looking position too. So on top of that all, but that's not. Yeah, Rush just restart everything. So yeah, I mean, to me, this is I think this is boring to a lot of people. We'll move on, but I do think that this is something that obviously something that we deal with on a daily basis. So
why don't we start with the Flyers stuff? Because the Flyers Capitals game was postponed today. We heard about Travis Sanheim being put on the COVID protocol list. I'm not sure if that means he's positive because not everybody that goes on the list is positive. Basically they're symptomatic and they're monitoring them. But not canceling, but postponing a game is a big step because that's the indicator that there might be more there than just one guy.
Yeah. I'm trying to text somebody. I've texted a bunch of people today. So far, no one's talking. But if I do get it by the end of the show, I'll let you guys know who else might be on this list. I think that the one issue here that is coming up a lot today is, of course, that this is a team that's playing the Tahoe series, right? And that's 2 weeks from now, I guess. So,
well, okay. Let's just say this: when they announced this, I was skeptical. I mean, the one thing that, it's going to be outdoors. I get it. Okay, that's great. But these teams are playing indoors leading up to an outdoor thing. And we know the situation right now that, we've got multiple teams that have postponed. And yesterday, the big story was, and I mentioned it on the show yesterday, that Bill Guerin was going to have a conference call with the NHL. Apparently it was more than just him. It was him and a few other teams. And what came out around 5:00 was that they had decided to cancel or postpone more games involving the Wild, the Sabres, and the Devils, which is a smart thing because I don't know whether a week is enough time to you can call up players from the taxi squad, you can call up players from the minors to fill up your roster if that's what's needed. Apparently Guerin said that 9 players were positive.
Yeah, they're in a real spot. I mean, the Wild with all those positive players. I mean, on the one hand, it's funny. I talked to somebody from the Wild. On the one hand, they're like, yeah, this is really, we need to be out for a while. On the other hand, it's almost like, we're going to be COVID proof moving forward because everybody's gotten it. And it's interesting, like to hear that from a team, like, like once everybody gets it, and I think the NHL is actually banking on that to a degree. Like, I think the NHL is sitting back and saying, we're going to let COVID work its way through. We're going to survive it. And then the more people that have it in COVID, the more people who have COVID, who have had COVID. We don't know for sure whether it's transmittable or whatever, but it seems like once you get it, you're not people. The assumption, at least, which might be totally horribly wrong, is that you can't get it again and that you can't transmit it.
Well,
that could be wrong. If that's wrong, we're all really screwed. But if it's right, then there does become a point at which you have like that tipping point where enough players have had it that it's probably going to stop transmitting through the league.
Right. I mean, like the mumps thing a few years ago.
Right.
But
eventually it stops.
But here's the thing that I think is a reason for optimism, because everybody right now is saying, oh my God, we've canceled 30, 40 games, or I keep saying cancel, it's postponed. We've postponed 30, 40 games, whatever.
Yeah.
This is, I mean, based on the reports from the CDC and everybody, the worst time is now. January, February, March, when it's cold. As it warms up, even though you're playing indoors, the rate of transmission is supposed to go down. So this is just like in baseball, the worst part of it was the first month or so. Yeah. And then it dissipated. Now, of course, it happened in the playoffs after the end of the World Series when Justin Turner was diagnosed positive. But really, I mean, I think if the NHL survives this, meaning the next month, without like having to shut down half the league, I think they're in better territory. Now, that's not saying that nobody's going to get it, but yeah, I think
I hate to say this because I want to like knock wood when I say this, Mike. I think you're right, but I want to knock wood when we say it, and I want to knock wood when we say also the fact that like the reality here is that the NHL having not really discussed at all, like just blowing this thing up for this year, means that they're plowing through it. They're gonna plow through it, and and if they play 30 games, they play 30, like whatever it comes out to, they're gonna play. And I think they're gonna try to get to 56 games, but whatever they get to, they're gonna get to. And I wonder, and I don't know, I'm just thinking out loud. Yeah. I wonder, and I said this before, I wonder how long it'll be before the blowback in terms of the PR hit is worse than the optics of just saying we're going to go out and buy the vaccine. Because honestly, it's like the only way that you can really determine and make sure that everybody doesn't get it is to get the vaccine. And it's like, okay, then you have to advertise Pfizer at center ice for the rest of the season. Who cares? If you want to get a season, pay for the damn vaccine. I have no problem with it. I think a lot of people would. I don't think that's possible for them.
I don't think it's possible. There's just not enough supply, Mike. I don't think
and also there's just too many people right now, like in too many people that really need it that aren't getting it. That are in the medical industry. I mean, Russ knows all about that. So it's I
have two parents in the mid to late 80s. They haven't gotten it yet, and they're trying.
Think that, and the NHL is not willing to make that jump. I think they're just going to plow through it. I really do. I think that they're going to. I think they would have canceled it by now if that was an option to them. So I think that because there's too many things happening already. Now the other thing that someone brought up to me, which is really interesting, and this is a fascinating point. This has not happened in the Canadian teams, obviously, which is okay. First of all, we get that. Canada is much better at this than we are.
Hold on, but there's a change there too.
Yeah,
the change is they're allowed to eat indoors now. NHL players, Doug Ford just made that possible, and so we don't know what's going to happen now that they're opening up that.
Right. But
here's a bulletin though, Ross. They were eating indoors before. They were just eating indoors in their own houses. Now
they can eat in restaurants indoors.
Yeah. I mean, I still haven't done that.
Regular people can't.
Andrew was opening up restaurants in New York State, so opening up Broadway, probably opening up MSG pretty soon, or Yankee Stadium. But
this is Canada. We're just talking about Canada, and
I'm going to sound really self-centric here when I say this, but I want to tell you that there's a reality to what I'm about to say. When the Minnesota Wild, the Dallas Stars, the Carolina Hurricanes, the Predators have to shut down for a little bit because of this, it's one thing. The Flyers is a different thing. The Bruins, the Rangers, there's certain teams the NHL will look at differently when these teams have to start shutting down.
Northeastern, big.
Yeah, that especially the closer it gets to New York, like the Rangers are the big one. Like if the Rangers had a major outbreak, that would affect, or the Montreal Canadiens or the Toronto Maple Leafs. That would affect the NHL's view for the entire season. I just feel like that.
I don't think it will now. I'll tell you what the bigger part is, Zach. To me, the bigger part of this is there is no 100% solution. We know that.
Right.
The bubble was 100% solution. It was. And the players didn't want it. So now the players have gotten what they wanted, and it's not working. And so if they are able to get through this season, I think they're going to have regional hubs for the playoffs. I don't think there's any question about it. And I don't think the players can say anything about it because their idea of what a season was to them is going to be very hard to get through now.
Yes, I agree with that. And I think the other reality is that you have to just look at the players as they look at this, okay? Individually, the players look at this like getting COVID sucks. You don't want to get it, but they all know that none of them are dying from it. You know what I mean? They know that
today. We don't know what future results are going to be.
We don't, but I don't think most hockey players are, thinking that way. Beyond
I know.
Where I know. I think that they really are thinking like, we're gonna, have to shut down for a while. We're gonna get it, but we'll be fine, and I'll be okay, and I'll get it, and I'll get back. And we don't know. You're right. I mean, we don't know the long term. What it does to your wind, what it does to your ability to play could really affect. It could be a major affecting thing on players. We don't know. There's a bunch of things.
Yep.
But I think and I honestly do think that the Flyers having to not be able to play tonight gets closer to the NHL considering other options, perhaps.
Well, I'll tell you, the only thing that I've heard is that in spite of what Russ was saying, and we can't argue the success of the bubbles in Toronto and Edmonton last summer, the players are vehemently against it, even if it means some players testing positive. They do not want to give up their freedoms in terms of being able to live their lives, and with limitations, obviously. I think that, yes, you're talking about bubbles maybe for the conference finals in the Stanley Cup.
No, I think it's going to be for the start of the playoffs.
I don't think they'll agree to it, Russ.
Well, hold on. I think they will, because it won't be like just in Edmonton or whatever. It'll be in one of the cities from each of their divisions.
Yeah.
That's the way it'll be. And I think that they will sign on for that, because if they want to have a chance to win the Stanley Cup, they're not going to have a choice.
Especially if we don't have fans back by then. Especially, I mean, there's other things too. There are other factors involved here. Like if for some reason, we have another vaccine coming, we have another one coming after that. If this does start accelerating to the point where vaccinations are much easier to get and things, you can go to your Rite Aid and get it like a flu shot, then that changes everything again. So like I know there's still people at the NHL that hope that that's possible. So there's
we know Peter always says hope's not a plan, but look, my Mac has crashed. That's great. See, you asked me to reboot it, and now it's crashed.
We're seeing you.
No, this is because I'm on a laptop.
Okay.
Anyhow, what I want to say is we have to be realistic now, and even with vaccines, this is probably going to go on another 5-6 months. It is.
Yeah. Oh, I think we do have to be realistic too. But there's all these options. There's enough possibilities.
But there's another reason why. It won't be the players, it'll be the teams. In terms of lost revenue, in terms of advertising, this is one of the reasons why they're playing in their own buildings as it is right now. Because, for example, the Leafs would lose millions if they're not playing in their own arena, because Scotiabank won't pay them the money for the naming rights of they want these teams to play in their buildings.
Yeah, there's no question. There's going to be a point where they can't, and Scotiabank will understand. They will.
Maybe. I don't know.
No, they will. I mean, they will have to. I mean, they can't.
They're going to, Mike. I mean,
if it gets mandated by,
I don't think so.
It's going to take government.
We just talked about corporate entities being bloodsuckers.
Cutting.
Yeah, and that's what I'm saying. The same company that just cut radio stations is the naming rights for Centre Bell in Montreal.
Right, but the idea is this is a product for them to sell with, and if there is no product because you decided they had to be in their home buildings and the season is canceled, that doesn't help anybody.
Right. That's true. That's true.
That's
All right.
Let's
move on to regular hockey stuff, though.
Well, let's transition.
Regular hockey. There is no regular hockey. Heck.
There is regular hockey stuff.
Okay, let's transition to this because I've been waiting to talk about this since last night.
Yeah.
Patrick Laine,
Yeah.
the Columbus Blue Jackets. Okay, I was checking in and out of this game and watched it and saw Laine on a Carolina goal standing by himself at the face-off dot in the defensive zone with nobody around.
Yep.
No one.
Yeah.
I was not shocked when I saw all of a sudden on Twitter, Patrick Laine has been stapled to the bench for the entire third period.
Yeah.
Okay. I'm sorry. I know that Laine's been there a week. Maybe he doesn't know the defensive system of the team in and out. According to the thing I had just heard, there may have been some sort of an exchange between him and Tortorella on the bench.
I'm sure there was.
I'm sure there was. And you know what? I'm sorry. I know that Tortorella is a lightning rod. I'm all in support of Tortorella on this one because honestly, and this is the book on Patrick Laine. This was what got him alienated in Winnipeg from Paul Maurice. He is not a franchise player because he doesn't play at both ends of the ice. He's a pure sniper scorer, and scorers don't want to play defense. And
I'm going to be in the middle on this, Ek. Here, I support Torts for this game. If Torts does this 2 or 3 other times, then what's going to happen is Jarmo is going to get involved.
Right.
And he's going to talk to Torts and he's going to say, listen, I've got you these players. Now this is happening with all the players I get you. Yeah. John, the game is changing and you are going to have to change with it a bit, even though you don't like it. And guess what? This could shorten Torts' shelf life in Columbus as a result because – this is what happens over time with players and the older coaches. If they don't adapt, they lose.
He could have the same conversation with Torts and with Laine that when we talked to Kevin of the conversation between Feaster and LeCavier and Torts.
Yeah,
I'm not trading Laine. I'm not firing you.
Right.
Learn to live with each other. Maybe that. But you know what? I mean, Torts expect his players to play at both ends of the ice, no matter who they are. And this is the thing. I told Russ this before. Look at the difference between the first overall pick in 2016 and the second overall pick in 2016. Laine has not signed a long-term deal. He's on his second team, and he's encountering the same problems now in Columbus that he did in Winnipeg with a similar type coach. Austin Matthews is leading the NHL in goals with 11. And if you watch anybody who watched that game between him and between the Leafs and Vancouver, he was selling out at both ends of the ice. He was coming deep into his zone, helping out his defense. He is devoting himself to playing two-way hockey, and he's still scoring at a point where he could win the Rocket Richard. That's what you expect of a franchise player, and that's what Winnipeg and now Columbus is not getting out of Laine.
Yeah, I think I don't disagree with, obviously, with what Matthews is doing is remarkable. He's scored in 8 straight games now or something like that too, and he's just been he's really, he's had an amazing, and he is playing defense. He hasn't always played defense, but he has he always has had the potential to play defense. And you've seen it in situations like where they're trying to hold a lead, where he does play solid. He can play good defense. He's really good defensively. Yet I think that what the difference there is also the microscope that is on Matthews is granted, it's huge, right? But he's also not the only. He didn't just get traded, to a team like Laine's. The microscope is on Laine right now is intense. He just got traded to a team that tends to lose players. He got traded for a play. He's the best player on that team. He's the superstar player on the team as far as a forward goes. Not the best player on the team, but the best forward on the team. I think the pressure on Laine is really intense. And yes, he was standing around, and I saw the same play, Mike, and I felt the same thing. But I also think that the elephant in the room here is that Kekalainen is working Laine behind the scenes to try to get him to stay in Columbus, and this didn't help. Right? This is like
right. Well, that's what I'm saying. There's going to be a moment.
Yeah, there is.
It's going to be conflict. But the other thing with Columbus is. And we'll get back to Laine if you want. But the other thing with Columbus is their goaltending is below average this season. Neither goalie looks good. They're both having problems. Korpisalo gave up some bad goals.
Yeah.
And
There's leaking.
That is not helping the Torts system either, because the goaltending isn't perfect in that Torts system. You see the flaws in it.
Yeah, and Elvis is hurt now, so that doesn't help either.
Right.
So like this is it is a very tricky situation for them to be in. There is no question that you can. Torts came out and said all the right things. He said, okay, this was just he thinks that Laine has to learn the system. That was like that was a pretty good line by him. Like pretty good line. Like okay, he's still learning the defensive system.
Okay,
so,
can we at least admit that that's not true though? It's not
true. Of course, it's not true, but I think, but it's a way of him getting his point across.
It is.
Try to ease. It's for Torts. That's very, very politically correct. I mean, that's Torts to say that much tells you already that there's an issue here. That the Kekalainen doesn't want Torts to do this to Laine. Like that he said that much at all tells me something. Like
right, but this isn't the NFL where he has to learn a playbook.
No, yeah, and he has to learn to pick up his man at the point, which 10-year-olds are learning in every right. Youth hockey place there is. So yeah, I agree with you on that. There's no question about that. But I also think that Torts, he said that, and he said, this is just a part of the process. I think one time like this is one thing. If this becomes a regular habit,
yes, it's going to be a problem.
It's going to be a problem because, like Soda Duff last night, is like he came here to adjust the things really quickly. We're defending a tough lead there, but. Yeah, but that's not going to last very long.
I'll tell you what's upstaging Laine is the fact that Roslovic is playing like Jack Roslovic can play, and that's not helping Patrick Laine's case at all.
Yeah, I mean, Roslovic deked a Carolina defenseman out of his jock, scoring the winning goal.
Much more talented kid than I realized. He's got
a lot of talent. Nick. He's young. Yeah.
No, he's very young, and he's just I kind of just got buried.
He skipped a lot of levels, but there's talent there.
And I was really upset. Like, he got buried in Winnipeg, and then I was like, man, this whole holdout thing in Winnipeg, that kind of got to me too, because I hate when players do that. But he definitely has the skill, and he's backing it up right now on the ice. So there's something to that. I agree.
And that's the thing. So how come he can go there and learn the system,
right,
and Laine can't?
Right.
That's where that Torts part of it doesn't work. And honestly, it is good that Torts said that, because he would have said something worse otherwise. But let's also understand that most Columbus fans are smart enough to realize after a week, what's going on with the team. You've practiced with them. It's not like you're not picking it up. It's more
because Russ with Laine, and the only time I've ever had any kind of personal interaction with Laine was at the draft. I don't even know if he was at the draft combine. I think he was in 2016, but I did see him.
He was there, I think.
Yeah, I did see him in Buffalo at the draft. Okay, I'm sure he's a good kid. But there's a sense of entitlement there because, he's a big, talented scorer who's got one of the best shots in the league, who, when he applied himself, scored, over 40 goals in Winnipeg that one year. But there's a sense of entitlement there. And obviously, he doesn't feel, the way he plays, he doesn't feel he has to play defense.
I'm going to say, I don't know if it's entitlement. I've interviewed him probably 4 or 5 times after good games and bad, and at that combine. I think there's an aloofness to him, and I think just he's got this like unicorn kind of personality where I think it is hard to get through to him.
It is, and it's funny because I've gotten to talk to him a couple times, but the one time I really got to talk to him the most was when they brought them the draft guys there during the World Cup of Hockey, I guess it was, or it was the Stanley Cup, right? Yeah, they bring them up. For the Stanley Cup, they bring the next year draft guys in. And so I got to talk to Laine and Matthews, like right next to each other. They were both standing there in the hallway. There's scrums around each of them. So getting to talk to them back to back before both of them were drafted. And it was interesting. The difference in them was so striking. It was crazy. Like they're so different. I mean, Matthews at that point, and still to this point, just completely quiet, unassuming character, really just really kind of Lindros-esque in a way, like he was afraid to sort of say anything wrong, but didn't want to say much at all.
I think that's true, actually. Yeah. And
Laine, very much like relaxed, calm in front of the media. This is no big deal. I'm meeting all these, that's McKenzie, that's Drager. Who cares? It's just very different kind of like, and I wouldn't say it was like entitled as much as it was aloof. Like it just felt like aloof. Like it felt more like, okay, this is, and they just couldn't be more different from each other. There's no personality wise. It was a striking thing. It felt that way too, with Christier and Nolan Patrick too. Like certain things that you just see two guys next to each other who are going to get drafted 1 and 2, who just are totally different from each other.
Yeah, no question. Like I said, I mean, and I don't, and again, I do think there's a little hard-headedness in Laine for sure, but I do think there's also just it's hard to get through. And I think if you want to unlock that goal scoring, that obviously with that shot that's there, unfortunately, Torts' way is not going to work on him. It's not.
Yeah. I mean, I talked to a player last night. It was really interesting. Who said to me, he said, "Listen, this is like off the record. Don't say who I was, but you can say this. That I think a lot of people feel this way." And I thought this was. I'm going to write a story about it, but I think it's worth bringing up. That players in the NHL, like they do feel there's just a sense of entitlement. I mean, they get paid a lot of money to do what they do. They enjoy it. I mean, it's a great job, obviously.
Sure.
Right now, it's not as great of a job, and it's more of a job to a lot of them. And he said, there's definitely a sense of like, okay, we want to get paid this year, so we got to do this. Where you would never have that in hockey. Like that's never like normally the pro athlete attitude. Normally, pro athlete attitude is like they're getting paid a lot. That's awesome. Let's go out there and they go out there and play and have fun. And
I'll tell you what that is. Real life has come on a collision course with fantasy.
It has, no questions about it. And for the younger players, that's a lot to take in because we forget that these guys are not super emotionally mature at 20, 21, right. 22 years old. I mean, they're we're much older than that, and we can see things a lot differently than they do. They've always been the best player on the team. They've always been pampered to a degree. They've always been, they've always had the puck as much as they want to. They've always all these things that they have had. It's different now, and now they're also facing the fact that this is a job, and they're going and they have to stay safe, and they're going and they're playing in front of nobody, and there's a bunch of things now that are coming into play. And they have to survive this year, and that's the reality. They're trying to survive 1 year. But yeah, it's a factor. And with some players, I think like Laine, maybe you could see it happening, factoring into last night to a degree. Like this is a tough spot. I don't know. I'm going to be interested to see how Kekalainen goes eventually with this. Will he side? Are we going to come to it's either Patrick Laine or Tortorella moment? Like that's what I'm wondering.
Well, I don't think it will happen. I mean, although his contract is up at the end of this year, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yes.
So it just may not get renewed, Ek.
Right. And he's a lot, but Kekalainen's also always defended him.
But there's always a point when you have to stop defending Torts too. And
there is
a lot of coaches. It's not just Torts; it's a lot of coaches.
No, but it's especially him. I think that you run into.
But it's him especially, and I do think, and we've seen this every place he's coached. I've seen owners and I've seen GMs go out of their way to say what you just said, but there is a day when that stops.
Except in Vancouver.
It never happened.
Where they threw him under the bus after one incident where he went to the Calgary locker room.
Right.
Yeah.
So, okay, let's move on to this because I'm sure that this will, be a nice conversation regarding the Pittsburgh Penguins GM situation. A number of people, Frank Cervelli, Elliot Friedman, are all reporting that it looks like Ron Hextall is the new GM in Pittsburgh. Nothing official yet. They're in talks. But what else is coming out here is that Hextall may be one of a number of hires. It sounds like what they're going to do here, and Greg Wyshynski just tweeted this out. That there may be a cabinet of hires rather than one GM to.
Well, of course, it has to be.
Right. So basically what it sounds like is they're going to put Hextall. Hextall will be the overall GM and will be in charge of replenishing the Penguins' sad, empty prospect pool. But that there will be other assistants hired as well to help with the day-to-day operations. And it sounds like they want to do two things at once. They want to contend now and they want to rebuild.
Well, I'll tell you what I said on Sirius Ek, and then you can go with your thing too. It's obvious with seeing what the Flyers are doing with the scouts that Hextall had and the player development that Hextall employed, that is his calling card. That is helping him get a job. Even the JVR contract, you can't kill Hextall on anymore because that's working out. So that's all in the positive. The way the Penguins were working was Rutherford was wearing a lot of hats. So, of course, the Penguins are going to have to hire more people. And if Hextall comes in, all I can say is look for some familiar faces that may be in other places that now will end up in Pittsburgh with Ron Hextall. That's all I can say. And that's what's going to happen. But I don't think he's going to take it down to the
bare wood
bones, as they say. Yeah.
Yeah,
He's
no.
not going to do that. But I do think
And you don't have to do that. You do have a base in Pittsburgh to build off of.
There's a base, but I was asked, what would you do if you were the GM? And I'll tell you the two things I would do. I would trade Malkin either at the trading deadline or the draft, depending on value is highest. And then I would trade Letang. I would roll with everything else after that. So now I'm going to replenish my system. I'm going to get some roster players out of that, and I'm going to save cap money. And I think Hextall is going to have a similar plan. I do.
Well, the thing is, Russ, is that the talk was before Rutherford was fired was what he was trying to do.
Exactly.
So
I'm right about that. That's
he didn't try that hard though.
Now
he did try to trade Malkin.
Now the only thing I can think of is Rutherford's aim was, let's trade Malkin for other players that will help us contend now. And what Hextall might do is trade Malkin for a package of draft picks and prospects to replenish.
They were very specific to Rutherford that they wanted Crosby and Malkin to retire Penguins. That's
and Letang. And Letang too, supposedly.
I heard the other two. I mean, I heard definitely on the other two. Some people say Letang, possibly. But no matter what, they definitely said Malkin. And Malkin they definitely wanted Malkin to retire as a Penguin. But
they didn't say give this contract to Jack Johnson, and they didn't say
right. Oh yes, for sure.
There were other things that happened that hurt their cap and hurt their prospect system.
The Matheson trade, and
Hextall's not going to do that. He's going to help both of those.
Yeah. Someone did Rutherford have a trade for Laine in the works? I do not know. I honestly have to tell you, I don't know.
Letang, he means, not Robert Laine.
Letang, right? Sorry. Not Robert Laine. Robert Laine, no, he's still not.
Good player.
Yeah, he was part of that whole thing. But anyway, I think to think that Ron Hextall is going to be my president of a committee, if I'm like, it means you didn't do any homework at all if you're the Penguins.
No, but he's going to change. He's not going to be the exact same guy in Philly.
He's not going to be the exact same guy, but you're talking about like a mass. Like, first of all, you're right, Russ, that he is probably a great director of scouting beyond. That's what he does, right? That's Hexy's thing, no question about it. And if you're going to make him the director of scouting, then make him the director of scouting. But if you think you're going to make him the GM, but then have other people. No, communication is his.
We don't know what the divvying of responsibilities here is, but I'm assuming if Hextall is the general manager and he's coming in there, he has been given autonomy to rebuild that franchise in terms of their prospect pool. It's non-existent right now. There's like one or two prospects.
But you can't just give him partial autonomy. You can't just say for the prospect.
No, he's going to have full autonomy. But let's just not say he only can do director of scouting because.
Right.
No, I'm not saying you can only do director of scouting.
Hold on, hear me out. So the Flyers had the exact same cap person for Chuck Fletcher that they did with Ron Hextall. Who had more cap space?
No, that's true. That's true. I get it.
So there is a philosophy there that goes with it.
Hextall did a heck of a job. Hextall did a great job building a prospect pool, building all that. No question he did it. But by doing that, it also meant the Flyers had to suffer a couple of years that I don't think the Penguins are willing to suffer.
They're going to have to suffer for a year. I think they're going to ride this year out and see how they do because it's a weird year and anything can happen. I think next year is going to be the year they suffer, and I think they're going to trade some of these guys, and they'll say they're trying to win, and whatever happens, happens.
Russ, it could be this year that they suffer. They're 5-5-1 right now, and if it's a 56-game season with no fans, why wouldn't you choose this year to suffer?
I'll tell you why. Because you don't know what's going to happen with the other teams because of COVID. The Flyers, this could kill the Flyers season. It's probably killed the Devils season. Like, we don't know. I know Miami ended up coming in second place last year in baseball, but you don't know how it's going to affect these players. So maybe Pittsburgh gets lucky. Look, if we don't think we're in a fluky season right now with the NHL,
of course we are, right? No, we are.
That we are, and I think if I'm the GM, I'm going to roll the dice like everybody else.
Well, it's a fluky season, but it's not a fluky season. This is basically the equivalent of November, and the Leafs have the best record in hockey. So by January, they'll be in the middle of the pack.
It's a weird season.
There's that optimism that we like.
Yes, it's a weird season for sure, but at the same time, it also isn't like these 2 years that this year and next year that are weird or whatever are going to be years that Crosby gets back on his life. Like, you know what I mean? How they're looking at it is they only have so many years of Sidney Crosby.
Right, and I said that, but Crosby will suffer for a year, but Crosby's also going to be a player that plays into his 40s. I think we all know that.
Yeah.
I think so. But, yeah, he'll play as a lesser player, too, for a while. But I also think that – listen, I think that, you know, Hextall can change. I'm not saying he can't, and I'm hearing it's Anthony texted us just a minute ago. He's hearing it's close to being done. I'm hearing the same thing too with Hextall. I think he's telling people in Philadelphia right now, from what I understand, that it's done.
Yeah, because they're just again, like Mike said, crossing the T's and dotting.
Yeah, but how this is made out is going to be really interesting. Like how this is done is going to be, because it's going to be a completely, if we're talking about like a New York Islanders-esque type committee by panel, Garceau era thing.
It's not going to be like that. I'll tell you what it's going to be like. He is going to hire people that have worked with him before and that were very successful. And some of those guys are going to come to Pittsburgh now, and they're going to be able to get off the ground running, because even if Ron still has some of these quirks, they know how to work with him.
Yeah, I guess. I mean, and it's also going to take a lot of Mario Lemieux being okay with, like,
he'll either be okay or I think he'll settle. Like, I think that's what's going to happen.
Yeah. I mean, it's possible that this could mean he's on his way out, like we thought before.
Well, it's funny because one of the I can't remember what show it was that they were talking about, the implausibility of Hextall being hired by the Penguins. And it was cited that, well, Hextall would want nothing more right now than to get back at the Flyers for the way they screwed him over. And that is enough motivation to take the Pittsburgh job.
Oh, there's no question that vengeance is a huge motivator for Ron Hextall in general. I mean, this is going to be something that he's going to feed off of. That's still in his psyche. There, just because he's a GM now, he's not a guy who doesn't, he doesn't hold that.
So I can see him taking a baseball swing with his goalie stick at Chuck Fletcher the next time the GMs meet.
Right. Figuratively, he will, for sure.
Yes. Yeah.
Can I tell you where I think that if they let Malkin pick where he's going to go, where he wants to go, I'm going to tell you, I think it's Washington.
You think it's Washington?
With Ovechkin?
With Ovechkin. And it doesn't mean they won't trade Kuznetsov in the deal, because they might. I just think that I could see him going.
From everything I've heard, he and Ovi aren't all that close.
They don't have to be. All right, let's get one thing out of the way. Do we think Crosby and Malkin are close? I don't.
Yeah, it's not a coincidence that.
No, but I don't think that. But I think that Malkin wants to go to a place where he's unmistakably the number one center.
I don't think he does. No, I disagree. I don't think he does.
He's 34 years old. He's
I
don't center anymore.
So he's right. No, he's still. I think you're underestimating what Malkin thinks of himself too. There.
No, sure. Hold on. If you go to Washington and you're the number 2 because the number 1 is Alex Ovechkin, that's as good as being a number 1 on almost any other team.
Center, he would
be the number 1, same as the old boss.
Well, Backstrom's still there, so he's not.
Yeah, but Backstrom, you know what? If all of a sudden Malkin comes in and he could show that he's better than Backstrom, they'll give the first line center to Backstrom, because Backstrom doesn't have an ego. But guess what? He's going to have to do better on faceoffs. He's going to have to be more engaged in games. He's not looking like the old Evgeny Malkin either. So
I could see him going to Montreal, to be honest.
Okay.
That's right. I mean, I could be wrong, but someone said LA. I've heard that as before.
Yeah, the number 2 behind Kopitar.
Yep. Yeah,
and
it is
behind
true.
A lot of other guys. He would be the number 2 behind some of the young guys too in a year or so.
Yeah, and God knows any team that trades for Evgeny Kuznetsov would love to have his talent and his brains, because a couple days ago he was asked whether he had COVID-19 symptoms, and he was asked if he was scared at all, and he said, "No, I'm from Russia."
Listen, there you go. I mean, there's always dumb statements, Mike. Like, come on.
Well, that's super dumb.
But that is super dumb. But it is also not shocking that it came from him.
I think personally, Ovechkin's only going to be in the league another year or two. I think now with the shortened seasons, he's going to see he can't catch Gretzky's record. It's impossible. But I also think if Malkin goes there, he might extend for another year or so, because there would be a legit chance of winning a cup. I do. That's just my feeling.
I don't think it's impossible. I think that Ovechkin would stay here until his late 30s because he knows he can go back to the KHL and do what Datsuk did and play into his 40s.
But Mike, it's 190 goals. He's not doing it.
Well, he's not going to average 50 over 4 seasons, but over 5 or 6 he might.
I don't think he's going to do it. I think, and unfortunately,
I can always help.
I know. I don't think it's because of his play. I think it's because of these 2 shortened seasons.
2 shortened seasons definitely kill him. They do.
That are going to kill him.
I'm not saying that they wouldn't, but I think he still could stay here. And
the reason I think Malkin doesn't go there, I think Malkin's going to go to a team that he sees as a team that can win. I'm not saying, and I know I'm lower on the Capitals than you guys are, but I think the Caps may have another year this year in them. They may have another run in it, but after this year, I'm not quite sure that they're not going to have to cut it to rebuild, and I don't think Malkin's going to.
If they got a Malkin, I don't think they would have to. That's my point.
Maybe they get one more year out of it. I don't know.
I think they could get more. I think, again, if Samsonov plays better next year, because maybe the ATV accident did have an effect on him, like we talked about, that would help their situation a lot too. So I don't, and look, could Craig Anderson come back for another year if he all of a sudden does well for them this season, if they start to use him? That's possible too. So I think the Capitals could get a little bit more runway out of it. But again, we'll see where Malkin goes. Like, I have no clue. I'm just guessing.
And
Colorado, like a place like Colorado, like a place like that, like a place that I don't know, we could see that would be just
a couple other observations. First of all, one of the reorganization things regarding the schedule that was announced along with the postponement of the Capitals Flyers game was moving a Arizona St. Louis game to later this week, which means that Arizona and St. Louis will play each other 7 consecutive games. It's like a playoff series.
Yeah. Wow, talk about padding the Blues winning percentage a little bit there.
Yeah.
That's crazy.
Now, I saw, and I don't know if you saw any of this, Russ, I saw about a period of the Lightning Predators game last night.
I didn't see any of it.
And I have to say, Pekka Rinne is done.
At
least two of the goals. It was like the puck was in a different dimension and it just went through him. I mean, I know it's the Lightning, and the Lightning are one of the best teams in the league. They're the Cup champions, but for the Predators to have had a chance to win that game, they just needed the basic save. They did not need Rinne to stand on his head, and they weren't even getting that. I mean, they're done. He's done. It really is.
No, I think so too. I do. And it's a shame. They're really kind of stuck. I guess. I mean, they could go out. They could have gone out and gotten another goalie at some point.
Right. I'm not even sure Ingram's back even for the AHL. Right. I don't think he is.
No, I don't think he's going to play the entire year.
He's not. So that puts them in. I mean, they really are in.
They're in a tough spot for goalies.
They're in a really tough spot. This is going to be a year that the Preds have always found ways to make the playoffs. This is a tough one for them. I don't know.
Now, Russ, you watched the Islanders-Rangers game. I watched about 2 periods of it before I fell into a coma. That's how uninteresting.
It was boring. There was, look, Islander Rangers, at least in my mind, is still always a good game, and it was very competitive, although it was no score for a very long time.
Oh, breaking news.
There was some good goaltending in that game.
Breaking news. Elliot Friedman is reporting that Columbus Blue Jacket forward Mikko Koivu is retiring.
All right, so the only thing I'll say about that is, Tortorella is going to be in the hot seat very soon.
Yeah.
So, was Koivu brought in there as sort of he's a veteran guy. They used him as second-line center last week, which he isn't anymore.
Right.
Yeah.
Was he brought in there to be sort of the conduit of information between Jarmo and the players?
So you're saying he's a double agent, Mike? Is that what you're saying?
I'm saying he was a spy. He was a finished spy. That's what I'm saying. It's like a Tom Clancy novel.
I'm going to say something. I have to agree with Mike. I think there's something to it.
It's probably not that far off. I mean, it probably does serve that purpose one way or the other. Even if it's not brought in to do that, he probably did serve that purpose.
Because if he writes and finish, you don't even have to put it in invisible ink. There's no point.
Right. Yeah. I mean, it looks like, have you ever tried to read finish? Yeah. It looks like it was written in invisible ink.
Okay. The other.
Hold on. Getting back to the Rangers, I didn't actually talk about the game.
Right.
Yeah.
Here was the impression that I got, Ek, and then this is just me thinking about the Islanders. This is Varlamov's year. Sorokin's really not going to get much of a chance.
No, when you see how he's playing,
it has nothing to do with him. It has everything to do with how he's playing. I think he's turned his game up since Sorokin got there. I do think Trotz has all the, faith in the world in him. I mean, we talked about his previous relationship with him, and the way that they play and the fact that they don't score a lot, they need a goalie to play like that. And so far he's been fantastic. That game was opportunistic for them. It wasn't a bad game for the Rangers in the sense that defensively they played a good game. But again, I think I didn't see the minutes. Lafreniere is getting his minutes cut. And if you remember, I wrote a scathing article about Melrose in Stamkos' rookie year, playing him like 7 minutes.
Yeah.
And the next day he got fired. It was not because of my article, but it was basically because the Tampa Bay Lightning saw the same thing and said, I don't think if David Quinn's not winning and he's cutting minutes from Lafreniere, that's not a way to stay ingratiated with the Rangers organization. I can tell you that.
No, definitely not. Definitely not.
I just look, as you were talking, Russ, I was just looking back in some of the box scores of Columbus and Carolina, and Koivu did not play last night, did not play in the game that they lost. Let's see. I'm looking at the 6-5 loss from a couple days ago, and I'm not sure if he played in that one either. So that might have been the reason why he's cashed it in, because he's not.
I'm not surprised. I mean, if you're him, why would you keep doing this?
He played in the 6-5 game, the game with the disputed goal, and he was a -2 in 9 minutes and 37 seconds. So he's playing fourth line minutes.
Yeah.
And again, okay, so let's talk about that for a minute. So, Ek, if you are John Tortorella and you know that Koivu has come in there, he didn't come in there to play fourth line minutes.
Right.
Maybe he's not playing exactly up to your specifications or expectations, but he's still an NHL player. You have to admit, what Mike just said, what he laid out is a great reason for Koivu to leave. And I'm not going to put it all on the coach because some of it's on the player. But at the end of the day, why would you put up with that?
Yeah, there's no reason for him to do it. I mean, I think that's it. It really does put it into perspective a little bit. And I really thought that Koivu, because he is such a hard worker, such a great captain type player, would work really well with Torts.
Yeah, he's a great guy in the room. Everything.
I didn't see there being any conflict between those two. I thought that was a great move. I thought it was a great idea. And the fact is not, it might have nothing to do with Torts. And, it's possible that this is just Koivu being like, this COVID thing.
Possible, yes.
This COVID thing is ridiculous. I'm not playing enough to do this. That's possible.
That may be Koivu now.
That might be Koivu now.
Now the other game last night, and we have to talk about Vancouver again. Now this is the thing. I give
Groundhog Day. We only talk about 16.
I do have to run, guys. I'm sorry. I do have a thing.
Okay. We'll finish up.
Talk to you all shortly. Thank you. Sorry about that.
No problem.
Okay.
I give Vancouver a lot of credit in this respect. I think they played probably their best 2 periods of the season. They outshot Toronto 27-7 in the first 2 periods, and they didn't get paid off. Anderson played really well. It was 1-1, and in the span of 11 seconds, the Leafs scored 2 goals, and it was over. And that completely deflated them. Holtby played really well, and I think he had to, because the previous night apparently him and JT Miller had words on the ice. And
I'll tell you why they had words, because when things were breaking down in front of Holtby, he had that look, and he looked to the heavens, and then he had that look like, what the hell is going on in front of me? And I'm sure some players took offense to that.
Yeah, and I mean, maybe he showed him up, but he showed him up for a reason, because they weren't playing defense in front of him. If I'm a goaltender who has won a Stanley Cup and has had a team play defense in front of him.
I'm not saying it wasn't justified. You're right.
Exactly. Now, all I know is, and good teams win when they don't play at their best, and they still win. And that was the Leafs last night. They played terrible for 2 periods. They showed, they pumped it up in the 3rd period. They got the win. Now they're 10-2-1. They can't, against a team like Vancouver, you can get away with it. Against a team like Montreal, who they play on Wednesday, they play that game, they get beat 6-1. So they may have been looking ahead to Montreal, but who knows? All I know is that a lot of the talk right now regarding Vancouver is trading Jake Virtanen. Is that they're not gonna fire Green, they're not gonna fire Benning, at least not
today.
Today. But that they're looking to make a trade, and Virtanen is the convenient guy to trade because he's been under the gun for a few years. He tantalizes with his physical package and his ability to play, but he doesn't consistently do it. So they're talking about, and every time
remember, this GM is the one that helped draft him,
right?
Him and his scouts.
It was his first draft pick.
Yeah.
But every time, and this is going way back in the past, but every time Vancouver trades a enigmatic player with size and and skill, but he just doesn't show it. You think back to the early 80s when they traded Cam Neely for Barry Peterson. And then Cam Neely goes someplace else and he's a Hall of Famer.
Yeah, I don't think he'll be a Hall of Famer for
No. But I mean, but there's a
history there, yeah.
And not only that one, but you even go back a little further than that. Try Tiger Williams and Jerry Butler for Rick Vaive and Bill Derlago, and Rick Vaive goes to Toronto and scores 50 goals 3 times.
Yeah.
So that's the worry that
screwed up my finger for 6 months.
That's the way. I'll have to shake his hand and congratulate him on that.
Next time I see Rick Vaive,
I'm taking him out.
No, fist bump. He's too good a shape. If you've seen this guy, he's in too good a shape, but I'm doing a fist bump. I'm
and he's got that unbelievable white head of hair. It's unbelievable.
I know.
But no, I mean, but this is the same thing that's going on in Calgary with Sam Bennett is going on in Vancouver with Virtanen. It's the fear that, okay, we could trade him and he goes someplace else and he's successful.
Right.
It's a justifiable fear because these GMs could lose their jobs if Bennett goes someplace else and is good.
Again,
or Virtanen, the same thing.
If he hasn't met your expectations, you have to trade him. You can't worry about that part. You can't, because if it's not working out there, what does it matter? Honestly, what does it matter? You're probably going to lose your job anyhow. Yeah,
you could say that, and I think we know that Benning, if they don't.
How good a footing is Jim Benning on right now? None.
I think he's safe for the year.
Okay, he might be, but will he be at the draft? I don't know.
Well, will there be a draft? That's the other question.
Well, but I'm just saying, assuming there's a draft, Mike, will he be there?
Probably not. I think he loses his job at the end of the year if they don't pull out of this and finish in the playoffs. The thing is, he would not be fired for his job in terms of recognizing talent. He'd be fired for his job of evaluating the players to sign and not sign in free agency. 3 years ago, I said he should be fired for Roussel and Beagle and Sven Barchi. And they got past that because he had such a good eye in terms of draft talent, Quinn Hughes and Pettersson.
Right. But it's more than that. We also have to remember there are times that the owners will go to a GM and say, we don't like this. We want this. Make it happen. And GMs have to do it. There's nothing they can do. They can just walk out. Maybe that's why Jim Rutherford walked out. But that's your only other option. You know what I mean?
Yeah. All right, we'll take a couple questions before we end the show. Flamester asks, Mike, do you think the deadline will be a dud this year? I don't think it'll be a dud, but I think it's going to be more than ever. It's going to be probably spread. I could see a number of teams making their trades 2 weeks out.
Me too. So they could beat the quarantine and get somebody for a meaningful amount of time.
Right. So the deadline, I think, is April 12th. It'll probably be like around April 1st. You'll see a flurry of deals.
Perfect timing. Let's see where the Leafs are April 1st. Perfect.
Yeah, great. April Fool's Day. Wonderful. Thank you. Cameron says, can you see Ron Hextall bringing in a new coach next season?
It's possible.
It's possible, but
No, it's very possible.
Yeah,
It is. I mean, let's
extrapolate. Let's extrapolate from that. If he's bringing in a new coach, John Stevens
could be one. I mean, we'll start with Sullivan was in a little trouble 2 years ago. Remember?
Yes.
And he did work his way out of it. Now his GM is gone. So we have to say Sullivan is going to have to prove it to Hextall right now, right this moment, right this season. Otherwise, there could be an issue. I could see John Stevens. I could see – I can tell you what Hextall is not going to do. He's not going to dip into the college hockey world. I think he's done with that.
So what you're saying is Dave Hextall is not on the short list.
Right. Dave Hextall will not be on his list. I think there could be – I'm trying – what I also think, like any other smart GM, he'll look to see who gets fired too.
Yeah. I mean, and Torts might be out there and Babcock might be out there. And
I don't think he'll go Babcock, but like if Torts was out there, would Hextall go there? Yeah, I think there's a chance.
Yeah. Okay, Esmir asks.
I'm going to give you a long shot. You want a long shot?
Yeah.
Jack Capuano. Okay, go ahead.
Okay. What do you guys think about Sorokin and his poor performance so far this season? Well,
I talked about it a little bit. It's not his fault. He hasn't played a lot. Yeah. I think it's tough. Look, I think Shesterkin had it easier than Sorokin. I do. It was good that Sorokin was able to come into the, early and all that stuff, but he didn't get to play any preseason games. Neither did Shesterkin, but I just felt like when he came into the season, it was easy for him to win those starts that he got and get complete buy-in from the team. Now, I think it's harder for Sorokin. They know Varlamov really well. He is going to have to win those guys over. He didn't play. He only played 3 games. Like, it's just he's going to be a terrific goalie. I just don't think there's been enough time or reps or anything else for him.
Okay, last one here. Johnny Red asks, do the Rangers make a trade for a center soon?
They've been needing a center for 2 years. So the answer is no. They still need a center. We should mention Barry Trotz won his 850th game. That's third most by a coach in NHL history. Mm-hmm. Could he get the top spot? I do think there's a chance that he will be the all-time winningest coach.
It's possible. Possible. Do you think he's in the mix for Team Canada?
I mean, he should be.
I mean, the talk is right now that the leading candidate would be Cooper.
I mean, could you have them both on the same staff?
Yeah. I mean, I'm sure. I mean, you could, Babcock had Claude Julien and Jacques Lemaire and Kruger and had a number of Hitchcock. So, yeah, but I'm just saying, I mean, as the head coach.
I think if you made Cooper the head coach and you asked Trotz to be on the staff, he'd do it. I think it's tougher to get Cooper to sort of be the assistant, though, just personality-wise. And it's not anything against Cooper. I love the guy. I just think Trotz is more moldable that way.
Yeah. I think that's fair. All right. We will be back tomorrow.
Ron Wilson is not getting another coaching job. He's a great guy.
Well, that's okay. Let's just say U.S.
Coaching-wise?
Yeah.
Well, there's 2 things. I just brought this on Sirius, Mike. I don't know if it's a guarantee they're playing in Beijing. I know they're going to play the Winter Olympics, but we did hear from Sean Shapiro, and we're starting to see other things like maybe it's going to move. And there is a possibility that venue could move. But,
well, I mean, there is talk that, the Summer Olympics in Tokyo are probably going to go off.
If it does, it's virtual probably.
But it's going to be basically in a bubble.
Yeah,
which means billions of losses for the IOC because of tickets,
right?
And you know that the Japanese would throng there. So
yeah.
I mean, the thing is, okay, if that's the case, then where would you go if you're the IOC to handle a Winter Olympic Games at short notice? You would likely go to either the place that was most recent, which was in that, but I don't think they'll go to Pyeongchang.
No.
They might go to Vancouver again. On short note.
Vancouver or Montreal.
Vancouver, Montreal, Salt Lake.
Possibly.
I mean, it's rather isolated, smaller population. I mean, I don't know how quickly enough if they could update the facilities. I'm sure that they could, but it would probably cost. But yeah, that's what they probably will do. They will go to previous places that previously had the Olympics to see if they could get away with doing it on short notice. They're talking about it's less than a year. So
now I'm gonna get crazy here, Mike, but I do think Torts would be on the list for the U.S. team. I do.
He might be, but the problem is
how he's done it he's worked with them before. But
the problem is how badly Team USA played for him at the World Cup.
Yeah, but that's the World Cup. I think if you have the right coaches with them. All right, here's a crazy thing. Ready?
Okay.
John Tortorella coach. Mike Sullivan is the assistant. Who's seen that before?
Yeah. Well, we saw that. I saw that at the World Cup.
I know.
So
and with the Rangers but it's not impossible.
It's not. But I'm trying to think outside the box of who else would be in the American loop. I mean, because that. So I mean, we'll let's think on that and talk about it tomorrow.
No, I have one, but I have to just vet it out. Hold on, because I sometimes forget who's American, who isn't. I'm vetting it out right now.
It's not Jeff Blashill. Sorry, folks. It's not.
And it's not Dan Bilesma either.
It's not Dan Bilesma. Dan Bilesma is his assistant. Yeah, it's.
Hold on. I may have one here. Nope, I don't.
It's Torts.
It's Torts.
It's Torts.
It's not Dan Quinn. David Quinn, rather. It's not David Quinn.
It's not David Quinn. All right, we'll talk about.
Hold on. What if? Would they go the college route for this coach? Huh?
Sandelin?
Would they go Scott Sandelin?
It's possible.
Be an interesting choice, wouldn't it?
Well, they haven't gone the college route since 1980.
Sandelin would be a great choice because think about it. If Sandelin were to go in the Olympics and win gold for the U.S., every NHL team would want him. Every single one.
Yeah. Yeah,
he's got that long-term deal with Minnesota Duluth right now, but doesn't mean that wouldn't change.
Peter Laviolette.
Nah, I don't think so.
Yeah. They're only
Sandelin is an outside pick.
Well, I mean,
Laviolette will get interviewed. So will Tortorella.
Laviolette has won Stanley Cups. Tortorella has won Stanley Cups. I don't think you'd have problem recruiting players because simply it's the Olympics. I think Austin Matthews or Eichel are going to play no matter who the coach is. But
I'm going to rule out Dave Hackstall. I'm just going to say no Dave Hackstall.
No John Hines.
No John Hines.
No Blashill. Yeah. All right. We'll be back tomorrow with another edition of the Hockey Buzzcast for the
it's John Cooper. That's true.
What?
No, Cooper's Canadian. Someone said Cooper.
Canadian.
Yeah.
Yeah. For the departed Eklund, for Russ Cohen, I'm Michael Agello. Thanks for watching. And remember, without the buzz, it's just hockey.